Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast, where every month we deep dive into a different aspect of cinema, a genre, director, actor, or franchise. It doesn't matter, because it's always fun at the Film Club. I'm Dean.
I'm Becky.
And this week we're talking about...
Buck and the Preacher.
And we have a guest.
We do. We're rounding off Western Month with a guest, and our guest is Brandon.
Hello. Howdy.
Welcome
Yeehaw.
back. Last time you were on, you brought us Orson Welles' The Stranger.
Yeah.
Which is a really great film.
One of the lesser-known films, and you brought us another obscure, lesser-known film
By another legendary actor.
Yeah.
Indeed. So Buck and the Preacher, directed by Sidney Poitier, starring Sidney Poitier, and also starring Henry Belafonte. Harry
Yep.
Belafonte.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Henry or Harry?
Harry.
Harry Belafonte. I feel bad
Wow.
because he like killed in this movie. Also
Yes.
stars Ruby Dee,
Yes.
and this is coming out in 1972, kind of at the beginning stages of like the blaxploitation genre movement, whatever we want to call it,
Before Blazing Saddles.
before Blazing Saddles.
Yes.
And I'm curious, what drew you to bringing this one to the podcast, to round off Western Month?
I think it's just an interesting film period. Sidney Poitier's first, directorial debut
Mhm.
is a Western. And it's a very odd choice. If you look at his acting, you'd think it'd be something way more
Prestigious.
Dramatic.
and personal. And I just thought it reminded me of, I want to bring the film because it reminds me of how Key, Michael Key.
Michael Key Washington?
No.
Michael Key West?
Directed Get Out.
Jordan Peele?
Jordan Peele.
There's no Key.
No,
there's
Keegan, Mike, and Key.
Yeah.
Keegan. Yeah.
Wrong guy.
I'm
Wrong
sorry.
Comedy Central
Yes,
special.
Peele. My bad. My brain's still going. Didn't have my morning coffee. I'm having it now. Thank you, Dean.
No worries.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Not sponsored, but go to Mino's Cafe in Whittier. They have coffee.
They also have really good Dr. Pepper.
I had to read just to make sure Dean it didn't say Minas or Mimos.
I know, that's what I was looking at. Like, is it Memos?
Yeah, I gotta make sure because Dean just called him Henry Belafonte.
I am
Yes.
famous for messing up people's names.
Oh, he's famous now.
Famously.
Yeah.
I have not gone through a single back-of-the-box synopsis without messing up at least once in like a year.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dean's famous name fucker.
Yes, I'm great at that.
Yes.
But it kind of
And it's your handwriting, too.
that's the funniest thing.
Don't worry about my
And
handwriting.
then he gets mad at me, and he's like, can you read it? I'm like, I can't even read anything you write me in a greeting card.
This is what I imagine. Hey, Boo, could you read this for me? I know I copied it directly off of IMDb or Wikipedia's back DVD box.
I
Like 5
changed
minutes
them.
ago.
5 minutes ago.
I cleaned them up. I like round them together. There's a little bit of wordplay here, and a lot of copy paste.
That, and you write it in cursive. If you're struggling, I think you should write it, all caps.
Yes, the title of the movie should be printed all caps.
Yes.
Block letters,
Block.
real deep, shading them in.
Matter of fact, get the little letter tracers.
There you go.
But it kind of reminded me, thought the correlation, like if Sidney had done his first movie now, he'd have a bigger budget,
Mm-hmm.
a studio like Blumhouse to fund it,
Yeah.
rather than just a series of little production companies paying for his film. So that's what kind of, I was like, this would be an interesting film to talk about, because I guarantee you Dean doesn't know about it.
He did not.
You were right.
I just like to throw these films where Dean's like, what the fuck is this?
That's always the best.
It's hard to catch me slipping, all right? But Brandon's real good at it.
It's not that hard.
About movies, yes. Like, I
You
watched
just
too many movies.
You just barely watched The Wizard of Oz for
He
the
does
first
that
time.
on purpose, though.
It was not
Those
the
big
first
movies,
time.
he does that on purpose.
I know, he always catches me off guard. He's like, yeah, I just watched this big epic for the first time. Like, what do you mean? And he goes, it's taken me a while, but I've gotten around to it. I'm just like...
It takes time to get through, the breadth of cinema.
I just binged all of Ben-Hur.
Okay, Ben-Hur's a banger, all right? Ben-Hur is sweet. People hate that movie. I think that movie's great. But Buck and the Preacher.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, for those who don't know what Buck and the Preacher's about, I have the back of the box. I was called out for it being from Wikipedia.
Get the source directly, written neatly so he could write it messy.
That's why Alex brought us the back of the box.
Literally brought us the box.
I know.
All right. Buck is a former Union sergeant and freed slave that is leading a wagon train to... Okay. Buck is a former Union sergeant and freed slave that is leading a wagon train of African Americans west from Louisiana to find new land to settle. But a posse of violent white men are hired by plantation owners to turn the wagon train back around, even if it means killing Buck to get it done. Buck, on the run from the posse, comes along the preacher, a fiery holy man and con man with gold in his eyes, who joins up with Buck after seeing the justice in his quest. The two must now keep the posse preoccupied as the wagon train crosses the plains, rob a bank to get enough money to build their new settlement, and keep the uneasy alliance with the native tribes or be forced off the land.
That was a big box.
It's a lot of words. But that's basically the movie, you know.
Yeah.
That's a good pitch.
Well, remember, it's probably from the Criterion Collection, the back of the box. So, you know, they like to tell you the whole movie down to even the production details on the Criterion box.
Yeah. It also surprised me that this had a Criterion release, by the way, because watching the movie, I was like, are we sure this isn't a VHS rip? You know?
Well, I mean, the copy that I watched, I had to find a copy because it's not streaming anywhere. So mine was a little rough. So it's like I would have liked to have seen like a clean copy of it.
I will tell you on the Amazon copy,
Mm-hmm.
the official HD release, right? You can tell it's a low budget film.
Really?
You can tell. Because I guarantee you guys probably saw the... you guys
dropping
saw,
your coffee all over the place.
Yeah, guarantee you guys saw the change in like the film grain, the way it went from like real nicely shot to like something
really rough day for knife shots.
Yeah.
Like not only that, but like the day shot of the horse, like it looks really bad. Like they didn't open it enough on the aperture.
It's really interesting because the movie, it is Sidney Poitier's like first film, and I think the budget for this was $2 million, right? But the movie has a vibe of being like a B-picture drive-in aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things where I don't want to like, you know, just besmirch the great Sidney Poitier as a director. But was it just me, or when you were watching it, did it feel like there wasn't that cinematic flourish of like an auteur director? It felt like a journeyman kind of for the paycheck director working into it.
So what I wrote is it felt like someone that is just experimenting for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a guy that acted, but he's like, I've never thought about behind the camera. So he's like, well, let me give it a shot. Like the point of view of him, the horse. There's one scene where there's a point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see the horse as he's going back to his house to see his wife for the first time. Random POV shot.
Yeah.
Like on the horse, he gets off. Boom. Like it's just a random shot. So I feel like when he took over, right? I mean, backstory. Another director was doing it, a white fellow.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was John Sargent, I think, something like that. I think his last name was like Sargent.
Fact check, Dean. Not because of the first name, the last name.
Joseph Sargent.
Joseph Sargent.
Oh, well.
See, I was there.
But Sidney felt like he wasn't portraying the black plight of the slaves well enough.
The real meaning of the film.
Real meaning,
yeah.
Right? Especially since it's odd for the time, especially just coming out of the civil rights era. Not only a black man, but a whole, tribe, family, a whole village of former black slaves overcoming
the entire
the
cast
white man.
is African American, black, and the villains are all white dudes.
Yes.
Which is a really weird flip on how literally every Western up until that point had been portrayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you even have the Indians, like full-blown Native Americans, essentially from this neutral party to, at the end, heroes because they help them pass through the lands.
Because they hate the white man just as much as we do.
And then you have the one sheriff that actually, wants
Following
to give
the law.
Yeah, he wants to follow the law. He wants to give people the opportunity to come to his town and to live comfortably and safely. But it's the people that just can't get over that there's been a shift and a change in the right direction. And it's like, no, we can't let this happen. We have to stay stuck in the past.
Until they have to intervene.
Yeah.
Which is, well, let's start talking about the story because I do enjoy the script.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing about the script and the story is that it's really has a a pretty holistic view of like the racial politics of like that of like, you know, the 1960s 70s era, and it's injecting it into this story of like the Western, and it really does cohese pretty well because it's a thing where, you know, Buck and the Preacher, they start off as enemies. You know, they're on two different sides of this spectrum of wanting to help people. And even like the evil white characters, there is the sheriff who is more sympathetic to the plight, and then you have the posse that are like the bad guys. And it's interesting to show that there's good and evil on both sides, and that this is a really complicated issue depending on who you're talking about. It's a really interesting I keep hitting the microphone. It's a really interesting story about how it comes back together.
I would say, and speaking of Buck, and I think we're going to talk about this, he's more of a reminds me more of like a blaxploitation hero, because he's not completely good.
No.
Like, he's an anti-hero at pretty much the definition.
He robs banks. He kills unarmed men, basically.
He robbed the preacher.
You did?
Yeah. Drop your drawers.
Oh, God.
Funniest scene in the movie.
It catches you off guard.
And he's just so happy too. He's in the river washing himself off.
Harry Belafonte's ass.
Harry Belafonte steals every scene he is in.
No, he's fantastic.
It's one of those things because Sidney Poitier, he is a prestigious actor at this point, right? Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Raisin in the Sun, The Defiant Ones,
To Sir with Love,
To Sir with Love, In the Heat of the Night, like prestigious A-level actor.
Yeah.
And he's coming in with like
award-winning.
Yes.
I think at this point he had 2 Oscars already. And he's coming in and he's like, I am, you know, Buck, I am this, you know, serious guy. And then Harry Belafonte is like, yo, dude, like, I'm just gonna be way more entertaining than you in every scene I'm in.
But that's the role.
Yeah.
It is.
But the preacher, con man, you know, embodies his former master's role of a preacher that's a snake oil salesman. So he plays that role perfectly with the grandiose theater of fire and brimstone. Yeah. Fornicate.
That was hilarious.
Oh, God. I love how he's just pulling these fucking sermons out of his ass just to get these people being like, you know, this guy might not be a preacher, but he's got a tight 5 in there. He could be a stand-up.
Well, I mean, even when they split the money in the end and Buck asks him, what are you going to do with your money? And he goes, oh, I'm going to go and buy a big tent and I'm going to be throwing on these sermons, you know, as often as I can, because he knows that's going to pull in the money. People are going to go and he's going to be fine.
That's another level of the story because the religious aspect of it is... I think the movie is looking at it as like, no, religion is a business now. It's not for God, it's for profit.
But on the other hand, you look at, I believe the character name is Cujo.
Oh, yeah.
The leader, the elder of the tribe. Because that's what, even though they're Americanized, and they refer to him as the elder.
Yeah, I think they call him like a shaman at one point, and so, he's like reading the bones and everything.
Yeah, the bones. So it more or less, I think it's a slight commentary on, like, you know, the white man's religion is business, but their home country faith religion is, you know, more give them direction.
Yeah.
Keep them on because there's times where the people in the group want to give up when they get raided by Cameron Mitchell, I think Deshay. Because they fuck up that group at least 2
constantly.
or 3 times. Like, it's not like just once. They come back again. They know this man is completely.
We'll hold for a second. Let you get the wires crossed.
There we go. This man is completely, like, just really trying to make Buck give up. Like, it's crazy the amount of, like,
violence in this.
Just hate.
It's pure, like, you see it for, like, burning everything up for no reason.
Killing people in their sleep. It's just like
the kid.
Like, the kid, Toby. And, like, what is, you know, this hatred that's there that, you know, you just can't let people be.
Yeah.
You know, they're constantly on the go on this long wagon train, thinking they have to pack up every day and leave people behind just because they want to live a normal life.
Yeah.
Wait, the kid's name was Toby?
Yeah. So when I saw it, I did one more watch last night, right? And I'm like, when did Roots come out?
Do my exact thought. I was like, wait a minute. I've seen Roots. What? I had to check the IMDb. I think the Roots came out in like the late 70s.
Okay, so then it might have been just a little funny,
Yeah. I mean, I
reference.
I think the book came out before this. I don't know. The books,
Yeah.
I haven't
So
read the book.
It might have been, it might have been, because I believe, this was a Sidney Poitier like push project even before directing. So it might have been like, oh, let's take little hints and stuff from all this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, because I think him and Harry Belafonte, they came together to produce the film.
Yeah.
And then I think Poitier fell into being like, well, I'll star in it. I'm a named actor. And Belafonte was like, well, I'll play the other lead. I'm famous.
Yeah, I'm famous for Bring Me the Banana.
Great song.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, now I guess I'm directing it. It's one of those things where it feels like Poitier just kind of kept falling deeper and deeper into making this film his own.
That's why I feel like his performance wouldn't be as strong as you'd expect it to be, just because it felt like he was concentrating on trying to be a director for the first time, trying to pick something that'll make the movie look interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps because the actors he has across from him are so good.
Yeah.
Every actor in this is great.
This movie made me realize, oh man, Harry's a fucking great actor.
He is.
It blew my mind because I was like, oh, I gotta see what more stuff he's been in. And he has only done like 20-something films in his 70-year career. And I'm like, what? Why was this guy not like some like leading man in the 70s, just like killing it? Like what the hell? Because I think there's a gap between this and his next film of like 8 years.
Yeah, I think it's Uptown Saturday Night. I don't know. Like I was just blown away at his performance.
But Harry Belafonte, steals every scene he's in, but I don't think he has the best scene in the movie. I think during the homestead scene where they go back and Ruby Dee is there and she's like, are we going to go up to Canada?
Oh, yeah.
And Poitier's like, nah, I gave my word. I have to get this done. And she's just like giving the conversation as her tears just start flowing and she doesn't break.
And she's looping because of how like emotional she is. Like she says it, I want to have your kids. And then she'll loop right back. I told you I want to have your kids. Like it's
heartbreaking.
Yeah. Because she knows like I'm in love with this man. But the reason I love this man is because of his
generosity, his selflessness.
He's so principled.
Yeah. Like any other man would have been like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Good luck. You guys have nothing, but hey.
Survive on your own. I'm going to try to survive on my own. And he's very much, I made a promise to everybody in this, community.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see through.
Same thing. Poitier always got to cast himself as the hero. He's like, I always have to be the good guy. He is a good hero. But I think it's funny. I'm like, I can't think of a single Poitier performance where he's the bad guy. Where he ever like does the Henry Fonda in Once Upon a Time in the West, where he like, I'm gonna just show up and be the bad guy, and everyone's gonna be like, bro, fucking like Santa Claus can actually be evil. What the hell?
I think he would have made a good bad guy just by the way his character kind of has that dark side. Like it just like it's a switch that flips to where it's just like when Toby dies.
Yeah.
The way he just rolls in there with the two double barrels. And
oh yeah.
Papa.
Those okay, I like Westerns, and there's some cool-ass guns in Western movies. Those top 5 cool-ass guns in Western movies.
Yeah, the backstory about, the blacksmith at this fort gave them to me.
And I mean, I just love the sheer power of those two, and it's just like, by that point, he is just sick of this crew of guys that keeps killing everybody in this wagon train, and it's like, hell yeah, blow them off of their poker game.
And it's a reminder that it is a Western. And the Wild West is exactly what it is. Wild. Like, you took it into your own hands, and if the law caught you, then the law caught you. But if you got away, then justice is done in essence.
And there's no rationalizing with these guys, so it's like, you got to put them down.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that the movie, there's a lot of violence in the movie, but it's not a bloody movie. It's not like a Wild Bunch or Sam Peckinpah thing where there's, blood squibs are going off. The only time you see blood is at the end, and it's only on Belafonte and Poitier.
Yeah.
It's a classic Western where there's guns, there's shooting, but there's no blood.
Everyone drops with one hit.
Yes. Boom. Even if the hit seems like it would have
blown their head clean off, right?
Yeah.
But it's also interesting that the main antagonist is gone at the end of the second act.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's DeFry is his name? Deshay?
Yeah. Played by Cameron Mitchell.
Yeah. And Deshay is like, he's such like a good
He's just
villain.
Hate.
He's just hate.
The embodiment of hate.
And I think it's interesting, they kill him in the second act, and it's like, but the posse keeps going on. It's almost like, well, this hate isn't a person. It's just this this undercurrent, this thing, right?
So I wrote it becomes essentially a heist movie at the end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Third act. So they bust in. Preacher man does the whole fornicate. That's all we do is fornicate.
And everyone's like, this
you're a
guy's
Jezebel. They loved
Yes.
they loved it when they told the mother hen of the whorehouse, she's a Jezebel.
I like that, the mother hen of the whorehouse.
They're like, it's true, Esther, you are a hoe.
Yes, exactly.
Mother hen, does she tuck them in at night, read them bedtime stories?
Well, that's what they call like the leader of like
a brothel.
or
a brothel,
the
or-
madam?
Well, nowadays that's also a reference. Like if you see a bunch of girls, the mother figure that is the mother hen.
I know. I just think it's funny. I'm now just imagining her being like, "All right, you pay me $20 for a great night," and then she just tucks them in, gets them the milk and cookies.
That's essentially what they did. The women brothel. That's what they did. Fed them, took care of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took care of them.
Well, Dean. It's more like this. If it's
It's more like okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no.
There's
ducks.
no the thing.
There's no ducks in the hen house.
No ducks in the hen house. Good turn of phrase, sir.
Yes.
Good turn of phrase.
Yes. But it's weird. Like it goes from we gotta stop the shade to okay, where do we go from here now?
Yeah.
And now the matter is okay, we gotta get the money back to pay the Indians, and then now we gotta run away because now the sheriff needs to, because we murdered most of the posse.
Yeah.
Like I think one guy was left from the posse, or a couple guys that were hanging out with the sheriff.
It was
guys in
two
the
guys.
saloon.
Yeah.
Yeah, two guys that were kicking it with the sheriff, while the rest of the posse just got
Blown away.
blown.
I like how the sheriff, they hear the gunfire and the sheriff's like, nothing illegal yet, and he's until the lady screams, and I'm like, there was like a lot of gunfire.
The way he sees it is like, he deserves it. I can't do anything about it technically because the village isn't gonna come over here and let me know.
Yeah.
Because they want to keep moving, and then it becomes, you force my hand. I have to
do something.
I have to do it now because the whole town now is like, two black people just murdered a bunch of white folk.
And they, robbed the bank, and then they didn't rob the post office, but they did.
Tie up two guys in a cell.
It was an attempted robbery.
It was attempted robbery.
It's one of those things where the sheriff's like, look, guys, I understand your plight, but there's like 10 dead bodies.
Yeah.
Like
you not only you robbed a federal building.
Yeah, and you have Preacher that's like, let's take this 10 pounds of gold, and Buck's like, be realistic, we can't haul away 10 pounds of gold.
We need the paper money.
Yes.
I'm just thinking back on that scene where he's like,
so
look,
happy.
we just break open this thing.
The way
We're
he's
balling,
so happy.
man.
The way he's just like, what's in the box? Gold.
Like real gold? Hard, shiny gold? Yes, gold. Buck, we can take this. Like, Mexico is not that far. And Buck's like, no, shut the fuck up. We need the paper money.
Yep.
The movie does have these moments of, like, real comedy in it, but I would not describe this as a funny movie. I've seen a mark on it calling this, like, a West... You're good.
What the fuck is going on here? Thank you.
Because I've seen this described as like an action comedy kind of thing. I think there's a tag on that on IMDb, but I wouldn't call this a comedy. It has funny moments.
No, it has its comedic moments, but it's not like a full-blown comedy.
I think you could throw him because Preacher is so charismatic and funny, but the movie itself isn't a comedy.
No, not at all. It's more like a just a situational like joke. Like this, like in any situation, it might be dark, but there's gonna be somebody that's like cracks a joke, and everyone's like, "Oh, no, it's funny."
Yeah, like when Buck and Preacher meet up again, and Preacher punches him in the face, and Buck goes rolling down the hill, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, this Preacher that's supposed to be good, just laid out Buck, who's been helping us." Then Buck gets up, he's like, "No worries, it's good, we're fine."
Yeah, we're even.
I like how Buck comes up and he's like, "Okay, I might have deserved that one."
Yeah,
you only get one.
Yeah.
They're like, you made me get naked and you stole my horse.
No,
and you took a bite of my rabbit.
Yeah.
So that was the coldest thing in the movie. He took the bite of the rabbit and then just throws it on the dirt. And I'm like, bro, you're leaving this man naked. You could have. Why'd you got to get the rabbit dirty?
And and as funny as the Preacher is, he did kill his owner, former owner,
and that's like a real like heavy story he's throwing out.
Yeah, like the way he tells it is lighthearted, but my mom had me. She and me were bought We rolled around with the guy. He would send me out, sleep with my mom. I got old enough. He sold her because he had me to do everything then for him. Drunk, wanted to go to sleep, left him in a pit.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of the scene from Jaws where it's Quinn's telling the story of the Indianapolis, and it's like he's smiling the whole time, and it's like, why do you laugh? So I don't cry. Yeah. And that's the preacher character there.
I told you, it all revolves around Jaws. Everything.
Oh God, black like a doll's eyes.
I'm wearing my Jaws socks today.
Oh God.
I'm always ready for this moment.
Brandon, are you a Jaws guy?
I've never seen it.
You've never seen Jaws?
Never.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That surprises me because granted, I don't know if you're a Spielberg guy or not, or if you're like just didn't go back to like all the classics, I guess.
You know what's weird about me and Spielberg? Me and Steve.
You and Stevie?
Yeah, me and Spiel. Like I'll watch the movie if it's there, but I've never actively
sought out his movies.
Yeah, like I'll sit down and watch it. Oh, this is great. Steve made it. Of course, Steve made this.
You're like, what's this film? Jurassic Park. All right.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. It sounds weird.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, like, and I don't even think of those completely as Spielberg movies. I think of them as Lucas and Spielberg, like the Indiana Jones ones. I think of it more like they essentially co-directed it. I've never thought of them as just Spielberg. Like, no, give credit to George.
It's one of those things where like Jurassic Park, it's like, well, that's Spielberg, but there's a lot of like the effects team involved in that. It's a thing where he's very collaborative, so you have this weird relationship with it. You can
tell, like with Indiana Jones, it's him and George. Yeah. Like George doesn't want to do the full grind of the daily things of being a director.
The thing with George Lucas is he loves pastiche, and Raiders of the Lost Ark is very pastiche of those 40s serials, so it feels like a George Lucas kind of endeavor, but Spielberg's cinematic eye is all over it.
It's a perfect team.
Now we just need to know if Dial of Destiny is going to be good.
I will still see it because I love all the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah, like you have
Crystal Skull too?
Even Crystal Skull.
You have to go see it just because this might be the last run for all of them.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here.
It saddens me that like Harrison Ford's like what, 80 something?
He's in his 80s.
Yeah, I think the only person I can think is older that's still active is Clint.
Clint Eastwood has just announced that his next movie is going to be his last.
Well, I think he feels it.
He's like, how old am I? Shit, I'm that old?
I'm about
Fuck.
Yeah, he's even older than Scorsese.
He is.
And we think of Scorsese as like, man, longitude. No, Clint.
Well, yeah, I mean, we just did Good, Bad, the Ugly, and I was like, wow, this was, what, 66?
60, yeah, something like that, 66, 67. And it's a thing where it's like, dude, Clint Eastwood's old enough to when Kennedy died, he probably had 2 kids and a mortgage payment.
Yeah.
My dad was 2 when Kennedy died. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Which, age. I like to bring this back to Buck and the Preacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Cujo, the elder of the village, the tribe essentially.
Or the wagon train.
Well,
whatever you want to call it. The community.
It's a village. It's a tribe. The
way it's a family.
Yeah, they run it like a traditional tribe. So I rather call it a tribe or a village.
I like westerns, man. The gunslingers going across the west. That's what we're gonna call him.
He was born in 1889. That gentleman.
Wow.
So he was.
What the fuck?
So the way his performance, that whole thing, I guarantee you, at least his grandparents told him how it was.
Yeah.
During Reconstruction, because this movie takes place in the Reconstruction period of America, like
after the Civil War,
1860 to 1877, I think.
Yeah. I think the movie calls out at the beginning. It's supposed to be like 1870 something.
Yeah, it has that whole George Lucas. Here's the whole
the crawl.
This is the theme of the movie. Yeah. We're dedicating it to like our ancestors who struck out and trying to make a better life for themselves.
And he's the only one in the entire film that's old enough to at least have parents that were kids during. Like, because I was looking, I'm like, all right, which some of these actors are. Sidney and Belafonte were like 20s.
Yeah.
But he was 1889, right as a lot of those older generation, were starting to die at that time.
Yeah.
But he was there old enough to at least be told these stories about, hey, this is what happened.
Yeah, and, I love that that's part of the dialogue in the movie where you have people saying, they promised us a square of property and, a mule, and it's just, they're still not giving us what they promised after all the things we did for them.
Ruby D's rent.
Yeah, Ruby D's rent.
We ain't getting no 40 acres. Ain't not even a mule.
Yeah, and it's like now, it's the same conversation we have now. Things are promised and, promises aren't met, and it's just you have to find a way to survive.
Yeah.
I love that there's also this symbolic thing going on in the movie, because I know it's shot a lot in Mexico, but some of it was shot in Kenya.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if that final shot where they're in the green field or whatever, I'm wondering if that was actually in Kenya, because that would be such a symbolic thing of the movie.
I was trying to figure out what shots were shot where, because you could tell a lot of, especially the cuts. Like you could tell the pickups.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the good shots were in Kenya, like throughout the film, like the nice shots of him riding the horse,
the plains,
Kenya, and I'm assuming the pickups were in Mexico just because
that's probably easier.
Cheaper for sure to do the pickups there, and it has similar landscapes in the more rural part of Mexico, at least during that time.
Yeah, to the west.
And it's a Western, so it's a cheap film to make.
I love that Western aesthetic where it could be like, do we have a desert? Oh, we have a Western. You can film them in Italy. You can film them in Mexico. You can film them in Kenya. You can film anywhere.
And it's ironic, though, that the sets, the inside sets, although sparse, they're very, very clean.
Yeah.
Even the wanted posters, you could tell, like, oh, all right, just...
You got those from the prop department, didn't you? Clean copies.
Just printed them out this morning.
They were probably just made cheaply. Like, they probably couldn't get access to, like, the Warner Brothers. Because if they did, you'd probably see a lot more classic
it'd be
props.
Johnson's mailroom, Johnson's food and feed, Johnson's and that.
You'll see a lot of John Ford props there.
Yeah.
If he had access to like the old, like to the big studio prop departments.
I wanted to mention that because watching the movie, this didn't feel, because this is 72.
Yeah.
And at this time we're getting the revisionist westerns, the westerns that are like kind of changing.
White Man Good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're getting Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but we also had Good and the Bad and the Ugly. But this feels like a throwback to like a John Ford Western, just because how it's like constructed.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some of that like turning because Buck and Preacher, they're anti-heroes, but so much of the movie feels like it could be a John Ford construction just because of how classical it looks.
Yeah, it felt like that John Ford way of shooting where it's like it's raw just because they're primitive, but it has
it's all functional. I'm actually curious about this because this has been called a blaxploitation film. It's also been called a anti-blaxploitation film. It's really weird. So I'm wondering your thoughts. Is this a blaxploitation film because it fits into that down and gritty kind of aesthetic, but it's filmed in this very classical style and it feels more like a prestigious kind of story it's telling?
I think it's called that just in hindsight, right? It's a blaxploitation film in hindsight, but it's a Western film directed by a black director that wanted black influence in it. The music, right? You got the music, all the classic cliches of Western music, the harmonica, the little string guitar, and then you got this bass, these funky drums that and then you still get the percussions of Western in there. So for me, it's more like a black director taking the influences of that time of the black community, your soul music, like he's just adding that in there. And in hindsight, that would lead, those are things more in blaxploitation films just because that's what black directors got. They were only able to do during the 70s. Blaxploitation, Shaft. Shaft Goes to Africa, Superfly. They were only
not a fan of Superfly.
You were only able to do that. So, but it's more of a Western shot by a black director about black people.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's going to not be a classic Western where it's John Wayne, I'm coming for the engines,
Get off your horse, Pilgrim.
Yeah.
We had a long talk about John Wayne
John Ford. We should do Genghis Khan.
Oh, Lord. Oh, ooh, look, I like John Wayne movies. That one I don't claim that one. That one is not a me movie.
I think True Grit would be better, to be honest.
I like The Searchers.
No, was that his last film?
His last film?
Yeah, it was True Grit. Right?
True Grit was what he got his Oscar for.
Second to last one, because I think he did a Roost. I think it's called Rooster. He did a spin-off to
True Grit.
Was it that one? No. It was another film.
Because I don't think True Grit's his last one. Because I think near the end
it's one of the last.
It's the one he won his award for. He had a Western that was a great performance by him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did one more after that where it's a spin-off of that character because everyone praised him for that character. He's like, hey,
John Wayne, let's go.
Wayne, yeah.
Man, John Wayne is a complicated figure now because he's in some great like classical movies, but he is not someone you can say is like, man, I really like John Wayne, and they're like, fucking why? Did you hear what he did to the Oscars? You know? Yeah.
I want to mention the shot because I just saw it in my notes. The zoom in of Buck. I forgot what was the whole. I wrote here. Zoom into Buck. Did Wes Anderson shoot this shot? Because it was like it goes. There's Buck, and it just zooms into Buck. It pans in.
Just zoom.
Yeah, literally. Like it reminded me of Alex, or Alex on one of our little short films, or like Wes Anderson, where it's a pan and a zoom in. Hello.
I think that's the first time we like see Buck at the beginning. He's riding into the wagon train and all that stuff. It's like, look, there's Buck, and it goes over and zoom in, and he's going across the plane or whatever.
Yeah, I was just like, all right. Like you can tell, like Sidney was just experimenting.
Yeah, and they're like, let's try this out today.
Yeah, like, some of the POV shots, that shot, like, he was like, all right, so this was going to happen. Let's try something, a little off kilter. Like, you're going to pan and just snap zoom.
Do you think Poitier, it all works? Like, his directing stuff he's doing here? Because I don't want to be, like, weird, but the second half, there's some clunky continuity editing going on where I feel like he didn't get enough coverage.
Well, first of all, when you don't plan on directing until you're shooting, you don't know that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And this is a case of he doesn't know what he doesn't know. Because there's some, brilliant things that happen there. And then there's a lot of things that are like, I wouldn't have done that if I was directing.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't know he was going to direct. So I forgive it for those inconsistencies.
Yeah.
You could tell a lot of the worst shots are coverage shots that they had to make up later, when they did, pickups.
Yeah.
So I don't blame it for that. I just take it I take it as, first time director,
And you're starring in the film, so it's kind of like, do you want to lack on the performance, or do you want to kind of lack on some of the technical stuff?
And I'd rather him lack on the technical.
Exactly.
Because at least you have that built-in excuse of, I wasn't going to direct it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I was in front of the camera. How can I be in front and behind the camera at the same time? I can't.
And he had no one to... You're already on set, probably in Kenya or Mexico.
Yeah.
Let me send a telegram and find... let me go telegram Orson Welles. Hopefully he's somewhere in Beverly Hills eating and drinking.
He can help me out on this.
Maybe he can send me a 12-page telegraph of what to do.
He's like, I'm frying a steak right now. I can't, Sidney. I'm so sorry.
No, he just goes, oh, the champagne by the French.
Dude,
what does this mean?
It's one of those things because it's like, Poitier, actor turned director. And I'm like, I've seen that before where you get like, Orson Welles. He was an actor turned director. But you see Marlon Brando, actor turned director for one time. I would say here's the
difference with Orson. He was a play director before that.
Mm-hmm. A stage director.
Stage director, right? So he knows how to be in it while also giving direction. Yeah. So he already had that built-in experience of telling actors what to do. He was fortunate enough to have a cinematographer in Greg Tolan. Tell me what you want and I'll figure it out. So you don't have to worry too much about it. And when Orson would start, fidgeting around with lights and cameras, Greg let him learn because, something might come out of this. But he had a guiding hand. I don't think we know who Sidney's cinematographer was on this.
I have it written down. Alex Phillips Jr.
And what were his credits?
Didn't look into that one.
Exactly.
It's one of those things where it's like, it feels like Poitier knows what he wants and he's trying to make like a very functional, good Western.
Yeah.
But like that thing where it's like, Orson Welles didn't have film experience, so he's like, I just want to experiment and see what kind of happens. And he had Greg Tolan to be like
one of the greatest cinematographers of all time. Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know if we can do that, but fuck it, I'll figure it out. I'm Greg fucking Tolan.
Well, Greg Tolan was like, I want to work with someone that doesn't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That way, that's an idea. I've never thought about that. Let's figure it out.
And in this, it does feel like Sidney Poitier did not have that guiding hand, because I don't know honestly
It's probably,
how interested he even was in directing at this point, because I heard him say that he fell into it because he had to after a week in, and he didn't even feel comfortable directing until like 4 or 5 days into shooting.
and it's also the thing of what was his cinematographer's mindset.
Yeah.
Is it, oh well, the other guy hired me, need the job? Is it work for hire? Is it,
did he have a passion for this at all, or was it just for
also,
money?
think about this. This guy wasn't hired by Sidney.
Yeah.
Technically, yes, because he was the producer, but he was hired by the director. So different things can go into the fact why this movie looks like crap.
Do you think it looks like crap? I mean, there's some inspired shots, but it is,
for the time period, Westerns were the most basic thing to shoot. Let's be honest, around this time, if you shot a Western, there was a pretty standard way, you know.
Well, yeah, that's why I was saying, you know, we talked about Blazing Saddles a few weeks ago, and just the contrast where everything is just so clean, so vibrant, these classic Western shots.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's kind of like, you know, you switch from, oh yeah, you know, that's beautiful, that's pristine, and
so
then
like this real grainy, contrasted.
And it's like, you know, if they were going for that stylistically, where we want kind of like it to feel like an old grainy Western, then I would have understood. But you could see the switch in between.
It kind of felt like, at least the crew, the production crew, it's like a half-hearted attempt. And I feel like whether it's there or not, you can tell someone isn't trying, because they're more experienced than Sidney.
Yeah.
And it felt like they're just like, who gives a shit?
Yeah, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We also don't know how much Sidney Poitier honestly knew about the production side of it, because all the actors do well. So I think he was invested in getting great performances, and he just kind of told the production crew to be like, just make it look good. And they're like, how do you want it to look good? Yes, and that might have been his direction. Granted, I don't know, because I haven't seen much of his directorial career after this, other than Ghost Dad, starring Bill Cosby.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was his last directorial film.
Really? I didn't know that he directed Ghost Dad.
His last directorial film. I wonder why.
Was that during Bill Murray's period of, I don't want to be a funny guy, I want to be the straight man?
Bill Cosby?
Or Cosby?
Oh, Bill Cosby.
Yeah. Wait, Ghost Dad with Bill Murray.
That would have been fun.
It would have been canceled later.
Every time you say Cosby, I just was translating it to Murray, because I forget that Bill Cosby attempted at being
an actor.
Bill Cosby was the Cosby Show.
That's different though.
TV sitcom acting.
Yeah, that's sitcom versus an actor.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Leonard Part 6 with Bill Cosby? That is the worst movie ever made.
Does he get real pilly with it?
Oh, it's weird. I think he holds somebody up with a kielbasa, like a sausage.
Take the pill. Take the pill.
Oh, it is wild.
Sweet potato pills.
Get the pudding pops and
the pudding pills.
But yeah, like, because I haven't seen a lot of his other directorial stuff. I think you have, right?
Some of it, yeah.
And is it a thing where like the production gets better?
It gets better, yeah.
Okay. Does he elevate from like journeyman to on a tour, or is it just a thing where everything's very functional and it's like they're fine?
I think with his direction, it's performances. Performance.
And you'd expect that from an Academy Award-winning actor performance.
Exactly. So you get your give and take. He's just started directing and is like, all right, well, we'll give it a shot. I think he had eight films,
something like that. It's not that many.
No.
He didn't turn into a Clint Eastwood, after
no
a
one
while.
can be Clint. Let's be honest here.
Still can't believe he's that old.
Clint Eastwood is old enough to have...
And still starring in these movies.
Yes. Boo, Clint Eastwood is old enough to have gone to high school with your grandfather and be the upperclassman in that high school.
Yeah, it's a weird thought.
It's insane.
It is very weird. So, anybody excited for, Clint Eastwood's next movie? Juror number 2? Anybody?
Oh, I thought we were getting Good, Bad, the Ugly Part 2.
No,
Good,
wait.
Bad, and Dead.
Oh, cool. I thought we were getting canceled.
They heard the Bill Cosby.
No Bill Cosby in the comic book shop.
Yeah, we'll see with Clint, Hopefully, I wonder who he's going to cast. Or will it be another one of Clint and a bunch of nobodies?
I saw he has casted Nick Holt
in
the movie.
That's
I saw
good.
that came out.
Okay.
I think he watched Renfield and he was like, this kid, he's got something. He's got that spark.
Does he cast his son, Scott?
I don't know. That's got to be really sad if you're just like, I'm Clint Eastwood's son. Has he cast you in any of his movies? No, he doesn't think I'm good enough.
Well, not only that, it's kind of like, that's fair. Because Clint could easily be like, we're going to make you a star.
You're going to be Chris Kyle. Who's this Bradley Cooper guy?
Yeah. So, good on Clint for being like, no, if you want to be in this film, you got to earn it.
Yeah.
Like there's Quentin films, there's Scorsese. This is a Clint film. Everyone, you might not think about me, but when a Clint film comes out, you're like, oh man, Clint's still alive.
That is what everyone thinks. They're like, he's still good for him.
And then after that, it's like, it was a good movie.
Oh, shit.
But it's always first, he's still alive?
He just pops up there. Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Oh, man. It is interesting because it's like I watched Unforgiven, I don't know, not too long ago. I keep saying that. I watched this not too long ago. But yeah, I watched...
It'll be like 6 months ago. Not too long ago.
Not too long ago. But yeah, I watched Unforgiven. It's like Clint Eastwood also has kind of the same thing going on here where it's functional. There's some good inspired shots, but he's not trying to do a Scorsese 10-minute long take kind of thing.
I gotta look this up because I think Pale Rider, he directed it, and it reminds me of that.
Buck and the Preacher?
Of how it's just functional and just kind of not like this... not what he'd eventually turn out to be as like a director, where it's like
where it's very composed auteur
yeah,
kind of
like
thing.
all of a sudden he went to USC with the hippies over there with Lucas and
Coppola
and Milius.
Yeah, because I know he directed Outlaw Josie Wales.
He did direct.
He directed I think some of the sequels to Dirty Harry.
Yeah,
and he might have directed Pale Rider.
No,
I think
he
Pale
did.
Rider's
I just looked
another
that up.
one.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
okay.
did. But you could tell because it was like a low budget. It was towards the tail end of westerns in Hollywood before it had that big gap.
Yeah.
For what was that movie? Not Unforgiven. The other one.
Dances with Wolves is what brought westerns back.
The other one, the funner one.
Tombstone.
Tombstone. Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of made it fun.
I like how everyone's like, dude, Dances with Wolves made westerns popular again. Like, no. Tombstone's the one we want to gratify. Tombstone's a masterpiece.
And that's what we talked about last week.
Dancing with Wolves is a better drama than a western.
Yes. Yeah. And it's also a thing where I just don't like Kevin Costner.
He hates Kevin Costner.
I'm not a fan of the Cost. I'm sorry. Okay, look me in the eyes and tell me that Kevin Costner's a good Jonathan Kent. That is some bullshit.
A fantastic Jonathan Kent.
Bullshit, sir. I'm
gonna go into the bathroom over here and protect myself because I think Dean's gonna fly off the handle.
It's one of those things where I can't even tell you. Stop that. Kevin, I don't understand it.
Every time I wish we did record this visually.
Yeah. The thing is with like Kevin Costner, I can never invest in him.
When we do the Snyder Cut one, believe me, I'm
You're just gonna hold that up.
Every time you start besmirching a performance in the movie.
We're gonna turn that into a GIF so I could send it to him when he's bugging me.
But
also Snyderverse, we're gonna be here for like 5 hours for that episode, aren't we?
If it's the Snyder Cut, maybe like 2.
Let's be honest here. You want to talk about the Snyder Cut, then compare it to the theatrical cut, and then try and bring in like Watchmen and see how this kind of fits into the universe.
It just depends. If it's me and Dylan, we might be here 3. But if it's just one of us,
if it's just you,
like if we go in, all right, we're gonna talk about this portion for this long. I think we can get through in an hour and a half.
But then it's going to be like, we're going to have to break for lunch and come back, tomorrow. It's going to be fine, guys.
We'll just record it at my house. I have the whole setup there anyway. And we wouldn't have to pay $45, $60 to record it.
It ain't that much here.
It's not that much here.
Wasn't it $15 an hour?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's like 10, I think. 12. Everybody come to Undercity Comics and pay your studio time. Ask for Renee. He's going to help.
Yes.
Yes.
But, wouldn't have to be 40 for however long we decided to be in talking about it.
He just leaves the keys and be like, close up when you're done. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes.
But yeah, like
we'll spend the night here.
It is a thing. Like westerns are such like just a functional genre of films, and it's kind of interesting.
At least during this period where they still had, the sets were built the 20s and 30s.
They're still standing
for the most part. Those that didn't burn up.
Yeah.
But at least during that time, sets built. Here's $5 million, just
do what you need to do.
Yeah, here's money just to travel to the plains for a couple weeks. And then we'll shoot all your interiors and city exteriors over here at the studio lot.
when did the Western kind of die out? Because I know it was in the 70s, and I know you get a few more coming in, because Ala Josie Wales sometime in this era, and
mid-80s.
The mid-80s?
Yeah, because Pale Rider was his last Western before. So it was,
and that was like the last A-list Western for a couple years?
Kind of. It was more or less, it got caught up in, what is it? Days of Heaven or Gates of Heaven?
Or Heaven's Gate?
Heaven's Gate, where it's super expensive that
the Michael Cimino movie that killed a studio.
Yeah, so it bombed, and then he did, I think Pale Rider was his last Western before Unforgiven.
Mm-hmm.
But that was pretty much, it's just like, oh, it's a Western. It won't, not that they weren't good. It's just everyone's like, it's like Marvel movies now.
Yeah, and that's what we had talked about in Blazing Saddles, that by the 80s it was more blockbuster, and what can we do, you know, Terminator,
what's
all
fun?
all these fun movies. So it's like we don't have to go back to
the Western. They hadn't made the Westerns fun.
Yeah, they started becoming a more prestige drama thing, and that means the budget started going up, because Clint Eastwood's like, I don't need $2 million.
You know what's
I need
funny?
10.
It is that Pale Rider was cheap.
Really?
Yeah, it was cheap and it was gritty. And it's weird because you don't see this much in Clint Eastwood movies. There was a supernatural aspect to it.
Oh, because he's supposed to be like dead?
No, he is dead.
Yeah.
He's the embodiment of I think it was a pastor, ironically.
It all ties back.
But a pastor that comes to bring revenge. Pale Rider, the death horse. Apocalypse. That's the whole idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I haven't seen that one. So.
It's a great movie.
Okay, I'll give it a watch.
Yes.
There's a lot of good Clint Eastwood movies, honestly.
I could have brought Pale Rider. You've been like, what?
Hey, I really like this movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It is a really good movie. Like, honestly, I'm kind of surprised at how good it is, because it has a very low budget kind of aesthetic. It's like a thing where, Poitier took over directing like a week in, and it's like, okay, I'm expecting it to be like just barely functional, honestly, because of all the production shit. Yeah. But Poitier really does tie it together. Like, honestly, Ruby Dee and Harry Belafonte, they kill it in this movie and make it work so well.
I would say if let's take them and just make it like in this time period, this would be a big movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
if you got Jordan Peele to direct this movie, it would be insane.
That's the only equivalent I can find right now. Like an actor that has a big debut, it would have been a big deal. Like some studio would have been like, here's some money. Like, do what you got to do. And it probably would have won more Oscars, to be honest with you, if it wasn't like a low budget Western.
Because I heard this was a financial failure when it came out, or like broke even, right?
Yeah, something.
I'm kind of surprised that this didn't have any kind of buzz, or people weren't like, yo, Poitier? Hey. Did his star fade at this point?
It was a different period.
Mm-hmm.
Different period. You don't, like nowadays, it would have been, if Denzel decided to direct a movie.
Or like Fences, right?
Yeah, cinephiles would be all crazy, hyping up the movie, and it would make its money back just through sheer, like, Denzel made a movie. Boom, boom, boom. But it's just time period. You got to remember the time period. You know, it's a movie bombed. Why? Well, these were the factors in it.
Yeah, that's that whole kind of like lightning in a bottle thing. When something's so successful and you ask me why, I'm like, because it came out at the perfect time when it was supposed to happen. And I think, the cast is perfect for this film. The story's perfect. I don't think it just landed on the right time.
Yeah.
If this came out like a few years earlier, right in the heart of the civil rights movement, would have probably it would have been a big run, or if it came out maybe even a couple years later.
Well, Heat of the Night came out in that middle.
Heat of the Night was, I think, 67?
67, right at the tail end of things still, there's laws passed, but we're still in that. And it succeeded.
A huge success.
But I think it's just, wrong time, wrong place. If it's like now, I think it's a big thing, because black cast, black heroes, overcoming, slavery. Like, it fits its time period so well. Like, this is a story that probably in many ways kind of happened.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the whole movie does have this thesis involved, and you can draw direct parallels to the civil rights movement, right? Where it's like, in this movie, the laws are passed to free the slaves, but they are not, the people don't want them to be free. And in the civil rights, it's like all the laws are passed to make everyone equal and vote and all this stuff, but the Southern, they don't want that to like go through. There's a lot of parallels you can draw.
Ruby Dee's character, it's a poison or soaked into the land.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's soaked in. Like there's nothing we can do. Like it's not, they can change the laws, but it's already built into everybody. Like,
and it's something that we still live with now, where we think that we've progressed, and it's like, no, there's still so much hate that's fueled into,
as generations pass, it gets better and better.
Mm-hmm.
But we all live in now, so it's like it's not quick enough. It's not like it should have already done change. But a lot of that generation's still hanging on.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
The civil rights generation, like whether on either side, there's a lot of them still around and kicking. But as time passes, it'll get better. But like for them in the now, in their lifetime, it wouldn't get better.
No.
So
I think that's honestly the beautiful thing about the movie and how it's dedicated to
their grandfather, their great grandparents, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the thing where it's like these are the people that took the first step into building a better life, to building that better tomorrow. And it is like, kind of, granted, the movie's kind of violent and dark, whatever, but it does have that kind of like heartwarming thing where it's like,
but those were the times.
Yeah. And the irony is that movie is literally little less than, when it was made, little less than 100 years, actually 80 years since that time period. So for them, it was very much like
you could have found somebody who was like Toby's age doing this.
Yeah.
They would have been old as sin, but 93-year-old, you've been fine.
Well, I mean, you had Cujo, 89, so, and this was 72, so he was late.
He would have 72.
Early 70s, maybe? No, late 80s?
He would have been in his 80s, yeah.
Yeah, so it was possible to find someone still around, especially them growing up. Like, you could for sure find someone that on the block that would have stories about, oh, well, when I was a child.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that famous thing where it's on like some 1960s game show where they're just like, I know your secret. And it's like, well, what's your secret? I saw the assassination of a president. And they're like, was it Kennedy? No. And they're like, what the fuck? And then he's like, he was 5 years old in Ford's Theater when Lincoln was shot. And this is 66 or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'm like 93. And they're like, well, you're not even 100? And he's like, no.
Oh,
what the fuck?
Like the time period, like, what was it? Like, I think it was like this thing on social media, like it showed like, oh, Rosa Parks, Ronald Reagan, Martin Luther King all lived during the same time period.
Or Anne Frank. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King, and it's like you think of these two historical figures and it's like, really? That was around the same time?
Yeah. That's like one of those things where I'm like, Clint Eastwood blows my mind, where it's like he was like in his 30s when Kennedy was shot, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, because I have this image of like, well, Clint Eastwood, he was big in like the 70s and 80s and 90s. Like, I don't put him in that, early era or whatever. And
it's those things where people say like, oh, 30 years ago, and people think like the 70s or the 80s. And it's like, no, 30 years ago was the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting in that way.
It's always a trip, just how time moves and progresses.
Perception of time.
Yeah, and it's just like, I could totally see how, we think, oh, this was such a long time ago. In reality, no, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But Buck and the Preacher, great movie. Great Western.
I really liked it. I mean, I loved Sidney's performance. He's not a cowboy in the movie, but I mean, he's a good action hero in the movie.
Yeah, and it also, like, in a Western, Sidney and old Pastor Man would be wearing your light colors, your light tones. It wouldn't be an all black suit like the preacher.
The white hat hero, the black hat villain.
It's very much like there's shades to this. Like, these are good guys just because they're on this side of doing good, but they do,
they do
bad shit.
They do what they have to do.
Yeah.
And I love that when they're getting ready to rob the bank and stuff, we see Buck go from his, like light orange shirt to the navy blue jacket that he wears. And it's like, he hasn't really gone full bad, but he does what he needs to do.
I love that scene where they're just, what are we going to do? And then, Belafonte's character is just like, there's a bank, there's no this, and they're going to be looking for 2 farmhands because all the men. Yeah,
all the men. They're going to go hunting.
Go hunting for us. And he's laughing, and in his face just like, you're serious?
You might be onto something.
Yeah, I love that scene. Like,
he's like, damn, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
And I think that's such a great performance.
It has like a buddy cop feel to it too. Like, it's just like these 2 guys just
You know what I was reminded a lot about this? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This feels kind of like that buddy action comedy feel.
They hit the tropes. They hit the tropes of Westerns, where you have these two, characters that they kind of hate each other, but then they end up becoming, best friends. Yeah. We even have them jumping off a roof to land on horses. Yes. I'm like, we're hitting all those classic Western tropes.
I laugh so hard at that because it's just like they're standing there and it's shot in a way being like, oh, they're jumping off like the third story. It's like, I don't know if we're going to make this. And then it cuts and it's like 3 feet.
It's like the patio roof.
Yes, it is like they could have just like stepped down onto the horse. It is like a 2-3 foot drop. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that was a funny gag. It was not meant to be a gag, but that was hilarious.
What was it? I just, it's a good film. I love it. I'm glad I found it.
We're glad you found it. It was a really good movie.
How did you come across this anyway?
Just on the Criterion channel, right? Searching through it, Sidney Poitier month. And, all of them were dramas.
Yeah.
And then here's a Western. I was like, well.
Which is very different because when you think of Sidney Poitier, you think of, his dramatic career.
I went from Heat of the Night to this.
Yeah.
That's a wild double feature, right?
Because I've always been a fan of his performances. And I remember I was like, let me just see. Oh, he directed something. Oh, okay. A Western. That's weird.
Yeah.
So, just like with The Strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, just some weird, like, okay, let's see how it is. And thankfully, they've been good.
Yeah.
You haven't come across a bad one yet?
Not yet. We'll see. It's coming. It's happening.
When we do what is it, the Spike Lee retrospective, that's when Brandon's gonna just start tearing it down.
No. I don't know if I can do that. I just, it's hard for me to sit through Spike Lee movies.
You're a John Singleton man, not a Spike Lee man.
Yeah, just I liked Inside Job. I think Inside Men. That was a movie. I like that one. If he doesn't write it, I like it. If he writes it, there's 50-50 chance where I'll be like, oh.
You just hate the endings.
And it's just, I feel like there's a natural ending and he purposely decides, fuck it.
He's just sitting there writing. He's like, here's the ending. No, we don't need that shit.
No.
Fuck Brandon.
I think he's more mad that it naturally does something he didn't. I guarantee you he has an ending in his head. He writes it and it naturally ends another way and that he just like, fuck that. Like, I have this ending, so I'm going to make this ending. I don't care if it does. I don't care if it's a square peg. I'm throwing this fucking oval in there.
Well, I liked Black Klansman. That was a good movie.
That's a good movie.
I liked it.
It was based off a book. He didn't have to write it.
See, yeah. You're like, that's your argument. You're like, Black Klansman, great movie.
Doesn't write it, guarantee you it's going to be a solid movie. Unless he doesn't care about it like Old Boy.
Oh God. Did you see Spike Lee's Old Boy?
No, I haven't.
Don't. The original one, it's a Korean
drama, K-drama.
Yeah, and I can't remember who directed it because it's like a famous director.
I think he did. No, he didn't. I was gonna say the dude that did Parasite, but
it's not the same guy. But I think their names are close. Yeah, I know.
Come on, buddy. Come on, pal.
Old Boy, really, really good. The original one is super fun. The remake stars like Josh Brolin, and it feels like such a.
It's an when they talk about American remakes being bad.
Yeah.
This is a number one.
This should be a number. It shouldn't be like, oh, we adapted a Japanese property wrong. No, this should be.
It would be like someone trying to do an American version of Train to Busan. I don't know if you've seen Train to Busan.
I've seen it.
And that's like.
It's possible. I think you just have to find someone that cares about it. But it's worth.
But if someone came in and was like, oh, cool zombies on a train, let's do that here in the States.
Oh, you could do that. Bullet Train. And throw zombies in the bullet train.
Don't touch Train to Busan, please.
It'll happen. It's gonna happen.
One of your top fives.
You're lucky it didn't happen during zombie craze when Walking Dead. Like, guarantee you it was talks. Like,
oh, dude, the zombie rise and fall and that boom was a wild time.
Walking Dead started it. Walking Dead killed it.
Yeah. That's what he asked me recently. He's like, well, how did Walking Dead end? I'm like, I have no idea.
I'll tell you. Would you like to know?
I would love to know.
Yes. So it pretty much ends by showing you the spin-offs they're going to do.
The Rick and Michonne one, and then
the Rick and Michonne.
And Daryl's going to France.
Daryl goes to Paris. Daryl in Paris.
Is it how?
So
they're in fucking Georgia, right? No, so, did he get on a rowboat?
So at the end season, groups of people have come together to make essentially like modern colonies. Like they're living everyday life, and then the zombies are just
There.
A thing.
they're there. They're become life now. Like they're getting smarter. That whole fucking trope where.
Oh god.
But it makes sense in that world because zombieism is a disease.
Yeah.
So a disease mutates. You can give it that. But it kind of was like it's a whole thing. They destroy the Commonwealth and the whole thing, and they all split up. They find out that Rick is alive, so now Michonne is gonna go look for Rick, and
They
Daryl,
ended the show without ending the show.
and then Daryl's gonna go look for Rick and Michonne.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, like the whole world, like there's parts of the world where they're still like civilized. Like there's power, there's boats. Like people just kind of after the initial thing, they're like, all right, let's get back together and figure out. Let's make a nice little peaceful, like I Am Legend when there's that colony.
Yeah.
At the end, which there's a sequel to where Will does live.
Oh god.
Or even Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
Where they're able to,
just coexist.
They bring the army in, they clean things back up, and they utilize the zombies for menial tasks.
And essentially it becomes, well, this is life, and, it's just a drama now in the not even a post-apocalyptic, because the apocalypse is over. It's just, this is our life in a rebuild of civilization.
This was this blip in time, and then
it's a 10-year blip in which the world kind of fell apart.
I am so glad I never invested into Walking Dead. I feel I would have felt so pissed by the end of this.
From what I'm told, pretty much it was like after they killed what's his name?
Glenn?
Glenn. After they killed Glenn, it kind of went off.
That's where I kind of tapped out.
Yeah, because Glenn became way more of an important character than anyone expected, and Kirkland was like, "We gotta get back to the comics, baby. Let's get back, kill this motherfucker."
Jesus.
And then after that, like they tried to do the comics more. They give Carl the one eye.
Yeah.
I don't know if Rick ever lost his arm like he was supposed to.
I don't think so.
Because at the end of Walking Dead, the comic, Rick dies.
Yeah.
They kill Rick because he gets assassinated. But I think this is it for Rick after the spinoff because he said, "I'm tired of this shit." Like,
yeah, I think Andrew Lincoln is even like, I hate doing this.
Because it was going to be a 3-movie trilogy, but he was like, "No, I'm tired of coming to Georgia. I want to go back to England."
It's a lot of physicality too.
Yeah, I want to see my family. Like,
there's also a thing where he's kind of like serious about like acting, so I think he cuts weight for this to look that kind of gaunt look to it.
And he told the AMC like, "Hey, one miniseries finalized. That's it, done. I'm over this." So it became a miniseries now that is, I think it's like 10 episodes, and that's it. The one that I'm scared of is Daryl in Paris.
That one I'm actually excited for. I want to see if it's terrible, but at the same time, I saw some I saw a production reel from someone that like lives on the street that they're filming some of the scenes, and she's just like panning down and she's speaking in French, and you just see zombies. You see zombies coming up her street, and I mean, because it's AMC zombies, they look really good because they're Greg Nicotero zombies. And I'm like, holy crap, I would be terrified looking out my window and seeing them come down the street. And then she goes down her stairs and she asks them in French, can I leave my house? And the zombies, oh sure, we're not filming at the moment, so you could leave your house. And it's this most random thing. So I'm like, I need to watch this show. I absolutely need it.
It's gonna be terrible.
It's
gonna look great. Be terrible.
Dude, oh my god, the story of like 90% of TV shows now, it's like the Lord of the Rings series where it's like, it looks good, fucking terrible.
I think as a society, we've come down to, just the average viewer. It looks like a movie, it must be good.
Yeah.
The Marvel syndrome, everything looks good.
It's
not very nice.
At this point, Marvel movies don't look good at all. Like
they look like upscale TV shows.
Like upscale soap operas.
I'm trying to think of the last Marvel movie we watched. Was it Endgame?
That you and me watched. Yeah, I saw Doctor Strange.
Like I noticed
too?
It started going down in quality with the first Black Panther. Just because the way the CG, it was a lot of CGI.
It was mostly CGI.
And it just didn't look
real.
It didn't look as sharp as the previous movies had.
And you could tell it was more or less like, all right, assembly line this.
I think that's the problem. Like after Endgame, everything turned into assembly line film making.
The last good thing is probably going to be Guardians. That'll probably be the last super artsy thing. because they kind of got forced into giving
James Gunn back the role as director.
No, but asking him to come back, he probably told him like, I'm gonna need a little bit of room here. Get off my nuts. Like, like you're asking me back.
He's like, I am now the head of DC's like world now. Yeah. So if I'm coming back, you give me things.
Yeah.
Well, he's recasting Superman.
Let's not talk about this.
Only Henry Cavill.
Brandon's having a stroke over there. It's like, only Henry Cavill Superman. Stop.
Hey, we went to Warner Brothers and I took a knee for Henry Cavill's statue.
So weird. Jesus.
We got to turn that into a gift.
So bad. But so yeah, Buck and the Preacher. I really like this movie, and I really like
Buck and the Preacher and zombies and Superman. Because this episode really
and Clint
Eastwood.
Yes.
There's a lot going on here.
Let's go with the range. We'll go Becky, me, and then Dean, because I always love to hear Dean's ratings at the end.
What are we going? 1 to 5, 1 to 10.
We can do 1 to 5. That's what I did.
Hold up, Dean. Do you have a half in there?
No, there's no halves.
Okay.
I'm not a
well, because
like
Dean likes to shake it up. So if there's halves in there, we might as well go 1 to 10.
No kidding. I'm gonna go 4.
Same 4. For me, it's a 4.
4. I also gave it a 4.
Wow.
See, I even wrote it down.
Is it a whole number?
That's
a
whole number.
It's a whole number, but he kind of trained in magic, so it could be a thing where he's able to just like pop down.
Pop it around. But yeah, like out of a 5-star scale, 4's really where it is. It's not a masterpiece, but it's really, really interesting. I think a lot of the themes and messages are really like complex and good to deep dive into. It's a little rough around the edges kind of thing.
The performances and the script to a degree. The script carry the movie.
Yeah. Performances.
If you want to watch like a masterclass in like acting, this is it, because everyone gives a performance.
You get Poitier as a very subtle performance. You get Belafonte as this kind of like big performance. You have Ruby Dee as this deep dramatic performance. You have Mitchell as this kind of like bastard, like evil man performance.
He's a son of a bitch.
It's I love the chew on this movie.
I love how he was so entertained by the preacher man before he got wiped out.
He's like,
yeah, this is awesome.
He's like, I know I'm the racist bad guy, but this guy's got a tight 5 in him.
This man is good. I'm in.
I'm captivated.
I'm captivated. Save me, pa.
Oh man, good action, good script, a lot of good stuff in it. It's just rough around the edges. But I would recommend people giving this a watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Same. I give it 2 strong thumbs up.
Two thumbs.
He does.
Very nice.
Very nice. I like.
But I do have a boo fact. I don't know if you guys know
Let's
it.
go. Let's go.
I live for these.
Okay, so Julie Robinson, who plays the Indian chief's wife, she's actually really tied to this cast because she's Henry Belafonte's wife. Sorry, Harry.
Harry Belafonte.
I'm picking up on him with this Harry and Henry.
Okay.
Henry the Sasquatch.
Yes.
Oh,
no.
Can we?
Wait, we're talking about Bigfoot now?
Can we do Harry and the Hendersons?
I haven't seen that movie probably since the 90s.
That is my Aunt Kathy's favorite film, unironically.
I remember one scene from it. They're in traffic and he makes the sound of an ambulance. So they can get through traffic. That's the only thing I remember from Harry and the Hendersons.
I don't know. I think it'd be interesting, but that's a really cool one.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. That was actually Harry's wife in the movie, and even when he sees her for the first time, he's like, wow, she's gorgeous. And it's like, oh, well, that's your wife. Yeah, that better be your reaction.
She was probably like, Harry, if you don't make me look gorgeous in this movie, I will fucking leave you.
I can't wait to do Justice League. He's like, well, Harry Cavill.
Harry Cavill. No, I will call him Primarch Cavill. Thank you very much. He plays Warhammer. But yeah, so
nerd,
savages all around me. But so Buck and the Preacher, really good movie.
Recommend.
Yes.
Highly recommended all around. But what are we doing next week?
Next week, new month, new theme. So that means we're kicking off our animation month.
Yes.
Wow.
Indeed. So this isn't going to be like the last couple of years where it's only anime movies. This is going to be something different. We're opening up to the wide world of all of animation, and we're going to start with a stone cold classic.
It's the only way we can open this month, and it's going to be the classic from 97, 98?
I can check. It'll be 98.
98.
And it's one of the greatest films ever made.
Yes, I can attest to this. It is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Brandon, tell me Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is not a great film.
I've been an advocate, some would say an advocate,
a soldier,
special counsel for Alex on his quest of promoting this movie.
It would be in the Sight and Sound Top 100 if people really understood cinema.
It's Kino.
It's very Kino.
But that's next week.
Oui.
But if you guys wanted to listen to us, where can they go?
If you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.
You can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That's The Film Vault on YouTube, where we do lovely slideshows of this. And Brandon eventually is going to come in, film us, put us in the big leagues of real podcasts.
The Scooby-Doo episode would have been perfect to do that.
Things happened. But if you want to follow us on socials, you can go to
our only social, the Film Club Podcast on Instagram, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, and our random adventures we go on.
Wow.
And if they wanted to follow Brandon, where can they go?
You can find me on Instagram at Brandon Wally BV, BrandonWallyBV.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.